The way boys play and the biological underpinnings. Let's talk about boys play. Boys play. You know that stuff that's been pathologized and banned for the last 50 years. Only girls play is good, right? Boys play. Gosh, I can remember when I was a little guy. We had all kinds of games we played. One was called, what was it called? Kill the guy with the ball. And the rules were described by the title itself. You know, if you had the ball, someone was going to tackle you, knock you down, grab the ball, do whatever they could. And it was legal. It was anything went. And of course, we all tried to get the ball and run with it for as far as we could until somebody knocked us over. It was a great game. You know, everybody wanted the ball. Everybody wanted to be the guy that got out there and ran with it and could get away from everybody else. Well, it was quite a game. You know, it's kind of like King of the Hill. You know, we play King of the Hill where you get up on top of the hill and whoever tried to get up there, you'd throw him back down. You push him back down the hill. Boogity, 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 boogity. Yeah, it was great. The biggest guy was usually up on top of the hill, throwing everyone off, throwing them off. And, you know, we had a good time. I don't remember anybody getting seriously hurt in either one of those games. The bumps and bruises. I didn't really get hurt. But they're being banned now. And gosh, dodgeball is being banned. Can you believe that? Dodgeball? You have this big, soft rubber ball that two teams throw at each other, and if you get hit by the ball, you're out. It's like that's been banned in schools since the early 2000s. Crazy, eh? Crazy stuff. Boys don't have those kinds of outlets anymore. We have girls play, and that's really okay. It's okay to play girls' ways, but it's not okay to play in a boy's way. Now, what did boys learn from those rough games? What did we learn? Oh boy, we learned a lot of things. The first thing is you got to practice being ferocious. You got to practice being ferocious. You may have only been that tall, but for that time, you got to practice being ferocious, right? You could be king of the mountain. You could be the guy with the ball, and you practiced. You also practiced going back and forth between ferocity and safety. You know, you learn about, well, maybe sometimes it's better to take the safe way. Maybe it's better than the dodgeball to stand back in the back so nobody can hit you. You know, you learn these things. You learn how to be ferocious. You learn how to be safe. And you get this exhilarating courage, you know, to go out there and do. And then you get the embarrassing defeats, which is a learning piece too. All of these things, huge, huge learnings that we really don't have anymore. Why don't we have them anymore? Well, because the socialization zealots have basically said no to men's ways or boys' ways of playing. Yeah. Now, play is an interesting thing. And what is it? You know, and most of the scientists are saying now that play is related to development. So that as children, we play in ways that will help us when we become adults. The garfish tend to jump over sea turtles. They jump over sea turtles to play. They have fun doing it, right? But they're practicing evading predators later in their fish life. Interesting, right? Lion cubs, what do? They pounce on each other. Pounce, right? They're learning how to take care of themselves. They're learning how to be predators, basically. There's all kinds of things out there. You know, what else is there? Bighorn sheep. When bighorn sheep are little guys, the males, what do? Boom. They butt each other with their heads. They're practicing what they're going to need to do to become dominant sheep when they get older. So play is practice. Play is practice. And one of the two largest types of play are play parenting and rough and tumble play. Now I want you to guess who has more of the rough and tumble play and who has more of the play parenting, girls or boys? Yeah, you got that one right. The girls predominate the play parenting and the boys predominate the rough and tumble stuff. They need to predominate that. And boys have a long history of having very violent games when they're young, particularly in cultures that need to protect their boundaries. The Sioux Indians in North America had some crazy games for boys. One was called the swing kicking game. The swing kicking game, the boys lined up and faced each other in these long lines, right? And when someone, usually the adult, would utter, "Can we get him down?" and knee him in the face until he bleeds, as soon as the boys heard that phrase, boom, they jump on each other and they try and get the other guy down. If they get him down, they try and knee him in the face until he bleeds. And it goes on and on and on. The guy that gets kneed in the face and is bleeding, he keeps going too. They keep going, fighting and fighting and fighting. Wow. Then they stop. The people who have seen these reported that the boys afterwards laughed about all that went on. And then they went off to do something else together. Interesting, right? What are they doing? They're practicing how to protect their tribe. They're learning their strengths and their weaknesses. They're learning how to protect themselves. They're learning how to attack someone else, right? So that later in life, when they literally have to protect the boundaries of their tribe, what happens? They know their own strength. They know the strength of their buddy too. They know where he's weak and where he's strong, and so they can support him. They can work as a team because they know each other. They've been there. Interesting, right? And there's more than the swing kicking game. Gosh, the Sioux also have this game 50 yards apart. They have these two fires with relatively large logs, not huge, but logs. The boys are one team's on one side, one team's on the other side. They pick up these logs, right? They're not logs, they're like big sticks. And they're burning embers on them, right? And they go after each other with these burning embers, and they hit each other with the burning embers. And they say that after a while, after you've hit enough people with the stick, the embers fall off, so you're left with nothing. And that's when you really get cracked by the other guys, because now they've got the sticks with the embers. Anyway, that's quite a game, right? Quite a game. It makes dodgeball look pretty tame, don't you think? And they have other games too, but the point is that boys have generally had really, really rough games because they need to be the ones to protect the boundaries. Now, what they found is in cultures where you need to protect the boundaries, they have these very tough games. But in cultures where you don't need to protect the boundaries, guess what happens? What happens is there's no culturally endorsed violent games for boys. So they seek them out on their own. They go out and find games that are somewhat violent. Why? Because they have these things to learn. They need to learn about how it is that when you're aggressive, you're a certain way. When you're not aggressive, there's things that happen. You learn things in fights like that you don't learn any other way. I'm not suggesting that we have the swing kicking game in our middle schools, but I am suggesting that we need to have some games that are really strong, like dodgeball would be tame. Of course, we do have football. Remember, football is an organized sport. That's different. That's when the rules are set by someone else, by adults. In the play games we're talking about, usually the boys are basically setting the rules themselves, or the rules are made as they go along. Anyway, so these games, these ways of playing have been pathologized. And we can thank the feminists for that. They've pathologized all these male games so that we're left now with tiddlywinks. We're left now with not really playing. And it's an interesting fact that the girls tend to find friendships almost any place, at lunch, in the classroom, and they'll usually have one or two close friends. The boys find friendships in larger groups, in coalitions, in teams, and places like that. So guess what? Title IX is screwing our boys, not just out of the teams that they've been raped of, but they're also screwing them because their friendships and the way they connect with other men and young men is taken away. So it's harder for them to connect socially because they're dependent upon usually the coalition as a means to connect with other boys. Yeah. You know, I can hear it now that the women are saying, they're saying to a little girl, "I am woman, hear me roar," right? She's got that ferocity. The culture is encouraging that ferocity. Hear me roar. But have you ever heard a woman or a man say to a boy, "I am man, hear me roar"? Get the imbalance? It's just imbalanced. I don't think feminists want ferocious men. I don't think they want ferocious men. And why not? Why wouldn't feminists want ferocious men? Because it's the ferocious men who are going to be able to say no in relationship. It's the ferocious men who are going to be able to say no in the workplace or in the family or wherever. If you know your own ferocity and are comfortable with it, you're going to be able to say, nope, that's not going to work. Not today. Not with me, right? So there, in some ways, the emasculation is also taking down this ferocious part of men, which is a critical part of both men and women. We both need to have some ferocity. We both need to be able to stick up for ourselves and say no. But we're now at a point where it's like, girls can hear me roar. The boys, not so much. You know, he needs to apologize. Oh, God. Oh, God, they want tame males. Anyway, this whole thing the last 50 years has been foisted on us because of their silly idea that everything is socialized. All of the differences between boys and girls are due to socialization. This is the nuttiest idea you can ever imagine. And play is one of the places where you can understand that this is a bunch of bullshit. Seriously. Why do we know that? Well, let's start with the testosterone flood in utero. Biologically, little fetuses of boys from 8 weeks to 18, 20 weeks in utero. Remember, 8 weeks, the little boy is as big as a raspberry. He's a little teeny guy, but he gets this flood of testosterone. It changes the brain. It changes all kinds of things. But for our purposes, one of the things that it changes is the way he plays. The way he plays, he's going to want to move towards coalitional kind of play. He's going to want to be aggressive and get out there and win and compete. This happens in utero. This is what happens in utero. Girls don't have the same testosterone flood, although sometimes they do. There's this problem that young women get, CAH, and I forget what it stands for. But what happens with CAH is these girls get a lot of testosterone in utero, very similar to what the boys get. And guess what? These CAH girls play like boys. They want to win. They want to play rough. They want to climb trees. You know, they want to get out there and do it. And it's this testosterone in utero that is impacting that. You know, the other reason or other way they know about this is that the women who are pregnant, who get anti-androgen medication while they are pregnant, in other words, they're keeping the testosterone low, their boys and girls don't want to play like the boys, the hardcore play, right? But the women who are pregnant who get androgen increasing medications, the girls generally are much more boy-like in their play behaviors. Isn't that fascinating? All in utero. This is before we're born. This is biological connection with the way we play and our biology. Absolutely fascinating. Now, what they've done is they've looked at all kinds of differences in boys and girls, and they've put a D value on these differences. And the D value basically tells you how many standard deviations different are the two populations. So with height, boys and girls are basically 2 standard deviations different, you know, generally speaking. And that means that there's a lot of girls that are shorter and a lot of guys who are taller, but there are also some very tall girls. There are also some very short guys. But you can generally say that most girls are shorter and most guys are taller. So, generally speaking, they've found this standard deviation thing for play behaviors between boys and girls is what? It ranges between 1.8 and 3. That's a lot larger than the difference in height. So this is a very strong difference. I mean, scientists say 0.2 D is negligible. 0.5 is moderate. 0.8 is a large difference. Remember, we're talking about 3 instead of 0.8. So that's what, almost 4 times what they consider a large difference. So this is a huge difference. Boys and girls play differently. And you can see all kinds of things happen. You know, when boys are 3 years old, they start to prefer playing with other boys. When they're 7 or 8 years old, they play 11 times as much with boys as they do with girls. So boys and girls generally like to play with their own sex. Is that interesting? We already talked about how boys move towards coalitions and girls move towards the single friend. And the girls' friendships are interesting. You know, the girls' friendships, they're single usually, and they're based on disclosure. They're based on telling things about themselves, and they get close and together. And it takes a lot of time and energy to develop a one-on-one relationship, right? But it's also very dangerous because if the relationship falls apart, the girls are vulnerable. They're vulnerable to the cattiness of the other female because now she knows all the secrets of the other one, right? And all is lost. So boys are not like that. I mean, boys prefer the coalitional thing. They like to move into a coalition where they have to learn how to become a part of the coalition and to have something that's worthwhile. You know, the boy who wants to be on the baseball team, but they're all playing out there, they don't have a catcher. I can play catcher. I can play catcher. He learns how to do something that the coalition needs. He also learns something else that's really important in his play. He learns how to tolerate boys he doesn't really like so much if those boys can help his team to win. Critical stuff. And it's tremendous help later in the workplace to be able to tolerate someone you don't really like if they're going to help your team win. This is the coalitional nature of boys. This is what they do. Now, all of these differences, or at least most of these differences, they found around the world. India, Japan, Canada, Philippines, Mexico, US, all around the world it's like this. This is not something that is just in the US. It's all over the place. Boys' play behaviors are different. One of the fascinating differences they've found between boys and girls has to do with toy choice. Toy choice. That sounds like a Chinese dinner. Anyway, it has to do with the way girls and boys choose toys. Guess what? The boys like the trucks and the girls like the dolls. How about that? Well, they did this research, and then along came the socialization zealots, and they said, no, this could be because they are socialized. This isn't biological. It's because they're socialized. So they did the research again, but they did it with much younger children. And with the much younger children, they found the same thing. The boys liked the trucks, and the girls liked the dolls. How about that? But again, the socialization bigots came along and said, wait, this could be because of socialization. It could be because of socialization. And researchers are scratching their head thinking, well, what can we do next? And in fact, you think about it, there's this research that showed in the first day of life, I mean the very first frickin' day of life, the little boy babies are more attracted to a mobile in the air that floats around. And the little girl babies are more attracted to the human face. Interesting. That's day number 1. Socialization. Forget about it. You're out. Anyway, so what the researchers did was pretty creative. They did the research on a group of monkeys. And they offered these monkeys trucks or dolls and some other gender-neutral toys, I think. What they found was the little baby monkey males preferred the trucks, and the little baby monkey girls preferred the doll babies. Take that, socialization zealots. You're finished. You're washed up. There's no socialization there, now is there? Anyway, we need to start to fight this kind of idea, this crazy idea that all of our differences are based on socialization. It's absolutely nuts. We need you to use your ferocity to say no to this crap. And I'm going to leave the sites to the research that are quoted here in this video. I'll leave them in the low bars. You can have a look at that. And in fact, most of what we've talked about today is in my book, Helping Mothers Be Closer to Their Sons. And if you've got an ex-wife who deals with your sons all the time, you might want to send her a copy. Okay? And in fact, the book is supposed to be written for mothers, but frankly, dads could benefit too from it because it's got a lot of stuff about the biological piece that makes boys and girls different. And it's not just because it's biological. We're different because of socialization, biology, genetics, brain differences, hormones. There's all kinds of reasons. But it's complicated, and it's not just socialization. Anyway, I'll leave a link to that, and I'll leave a link to the book in the low bar too. What can you say? Except, how about a little round of kill the guy with the ball? Anybody out there want to play? Because we all know that, what? Men are good, as are you. Come see me on Patreon, guys, and you take good care. Men are good.